Welcome back to the Basement Gun Shop. So in episode 1 we talked about the Taver and what we were going to do here. In episode 2 we talked about basics of reloading. In episode 3, which is being edited right now in post-production, that's a fancy way of saying my laptop is upstairs compiling the video. This is episode 4, and someone left me a comment on the first one saying that they noticed that I had a Glock 29 sitting there. The reason he knows that is that he's a friend, and he said, well, why don't you cover the ballistics and the differences and this, that, and the other? And actually that's a good idea. So what are we talking about? Ballistics. The science of how a bullet travels through the air, how it stabilizes, what it does when it hits the target. Ballistics can be defined or broken into 3 separate disciplines. Internal ballistics, what happens inside the gun. External ballistics, what happens during its flight time, or from the microsecond that it leaves the muzzle to the microsecond before it impacts the target. And terminal ballistics, how the bullet behaves when it impacts the target. Internal ballistics, we're not going to talk about. External ballistics, you can look that up in almost any reloading manual. In point of fact, the volume 2 of the Hornady reloading manuals have all kinds of ballistic tables. There's tons of ballistic table information available online, and you can look that up at your leisure. But let's talk about terminal ballistics, how the bullet performs when it hits the target. The major factor in terminal ballistics is kinetic energy, and that is the amount of energy impacted to the target when the bullet hits. It's a fairly simple calculation to take the bullet that you're shooting, the velocity it's traveling when it hits the target, and turn that into kinetic energy. And that formula is bullet weight in grains multiplied by velocity squared. That whole big number divided by 450,240. Now, do not dump anything in the comments. Well, where did you get these numbers from? Yada, yada, yada. You know what? People a lot smarter than me have come up with these numbers, and this is pretty much the standard that companies like Sierra and Hornady and Remington and Winchester, that they use to determine the ballistics on their projectiles. In other words, their bullets. Okay? Basically, the purpose of this video is to discuss defensible calibers. Now, let's talk about defensible calibers and let's define that. Right now, the industry defines a defensible caliber as basically 38, 357, 9mm, 40 S&W, 40 Smith & Wesson, 10mm, 45 ACP, 41 Magnum, something in that range. And I'm sure they have a whole big definition as to what's a defensible caliber. Let me just say this: anything is better than nothing. So if all you can afford is a 22, guess what? If that's what you can afford, somebody pulls a gun out, I'm going to say, okay, I'm done. You know, I'll leave. Bye. Have a nice day. I don't want to get shot. 25, 32s, 380s. You know, a lot of the shooting community discounts these as underpowered calibers. And in point of fact, they are, but they're still better than nothing. Okay? There are times I have a 45 or a 10 or a 9 on my hip and an inside the pants, and I got a 380 in an ankle holster. Because if I run my main gun dry and I don't have a reload for my main gun, guess what? At least I have something to fall back on. So that gets into a whole other realm of discussion. of what do you carry, why do you carry it, and when do you carry it. But that's not my purpose. My purpose right now is just to simply discuss in plain numbers the defensible calibers. So I have some numbers written out here for 38, 357, 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 10mm, and 45 ACP. I didn't go into the 41 Magnum because that's unfortunately an oddball nowadays. I didn't go into the 41 Action Express because unfortunately the 40 Smith & Wesson killed it, and it's a better round. But we'll save that argument for another day. I also didn't go into the 44 Magnum because it's an overpowered round. So you want that bullet to get into the target, transfer all its energy into the target, and stop. You don't want to punch a hole through someone and then you got to worry about a secondary target or an unintentional target because the bullet went through the bad guy and hit someone on the other side of the street. That's a nightmare I don't even want to delve into. So let's talk about numbers. I prefer bigger, heavier bullets. And that's my personal preference. In 9mm, the 147 grain. In 38 and 357, the 158. In 40 Smith & Wesson and 10mm, the 180s. In 45 ACP, the 230 grain bullet. So those are the weights we're dealing with. You hear my phone going off, which means I have to pause the video and order some wings for dinner because I'm starving. So give me 5 minutes to order some wings and I'll be right back. Okay, so my wings are ordered and let's get back to the information. Like I said, big heavy bullets, and these are the weights I'm dealing with. Kinetic energy when it impacts the target. I'm basing these numbers off the max velocities from the Hornady reloading manual in each of the calibers I listed before. So at the bottom of the scale we have the 38, 158 grain traveling at 850 feet per second yields 253.54 foot-pounds of energy. Next up, we have the 9mm, 147 grain traveling at 1,000 feet per second yields 326.49. Next up, we have the 45, 230 grain traveling 900 is 413.77 feet per second. Next up, we have the 40 Smith & Wesson, 180 grain traveling at 1,050 feet per second, yielding 440.76 foot-pounds of energy. Next up, 10mm, 180 grain traveling at 1,200 feet per second, dumps a whopping 575.69 foot-pounds of energy. And topping out the scale, we have the 357 with the 158 grain traveling at 1,450 feet per second, dumping out 737.81 foot-pounds of energy. So what does that mean? It's a bunch of friggin' numbers. You're right, it is a bunch of frickin' numbers. What does it mean? It means that none of that shit matters. A well-placed shot will save your life every time. I don't care if it's a 22 or a 25 or a 380 or a 38 or a 44 Magnum. One well-placed shot is all you need. It's that simple. But from the ballistics standpoint, and I will put a picture graphic up of the wound channels generated in ballistic gelatin for a number of calibers. Some I didn't even mention, like the 357 SIG. I didn't even mention that one, which is a 40 caliber case neck down to 357. Got a bunch of friends who own them. I personally don't own one. I don't shoot one. I don't carry one. To my knowledge, I've never even fired a gun chambered for 357 SIG. But what do all these numbers mean? It's basically the difference between getting hit in the chest with me throwing this at you or me hitting you with a baseball bat. Which one's going to hurt more? And it's not a function of hurt, it's which one's going to incapacitate the target and keep you safe. These are all defensible calibers. 38 all the way up to and including the 45 ACP. The differences, I think, are how much ammo can you carry? Obviously 38 357. Unless you're carrying something like a Conan, which is an autoloader chambered for 357, it's a 1911 chambered for 357, or a Desert Eagle chambered for 357, you're stuck with 6 rounds, sometimes only 5. Reloading is slow and cumbersome unless you're Jerry Michalek, as he pronounces it. I pronounced his name wrong in the first one, and I apologize. The guy is a phenom. If you just do a YouTube search, Jerry Michalek, Miculek, world record. The guy dumps 12 rounds on target from a revolver. That's 6 rounds, reload 6 rounds in less than 3 seconds. He reloads the thing faster than I shoot. He's not human. He's a machine, but his videos are awesome. Seriously, subscribe to his channel. If you want to see somebody shooting fast and accurate, subscribe to his channel. I guarantee he'll blow your mind. If you don't know who he is, you should. He's all about shooting fast and accurate. I'm all about being defensive. Keeping yourself alive, keeping your loved ones alive. So it's just a difference in philosophy. But if you look at the amount of energy transferred to the target, there is a trade-off. And that trade-off is the difference between driving this end of a screwdriver into a block of wood or driving this end of a screwdriver into a block of wood. This being the 9mm, this being the 45 ACP. Okay? That bigger, slower bullet is absolutely going to expand and going to stop in the target and transfer all its energy to the target. Depending on the distance between the target and yourself, that 9mm may drive through the target, and that's not what you want. As I've said many times, you want that bullet to stop in the target and transfer all its energy there. The graphic you've been seeing popping up, picture in picture right here, is a picture I snatched off the internet. It pretty much purports to be ballistics gelatin tests with several different rounds. 2 9mm rounds at the top, 124 grain, then 147, then 357 SIG, 125 grain, 40 S&W, 180, then 45 ACP, 230 grain, and a 10mm, 180 grain. And why a 10mm? Because they don't make an 11. Wow, there's a little movie reference. Well, kind of a play on a movie reference for you. See if you can figure it out. Anyhow, what you're seeing there in that graphic is basically the wound channel created by each individual round. There's no pretty way around this. Most of the ballistic research in this country was done just after World War II and during the latter part of World War II, where the U.S. Army would just take pig carcasses and shoot the pig and then dissect it. There's, no pleasant way to say that. But the wound channel is kind of a graphic representation of the amount of incapacitating force applied to the target when the bullet hits. You can see down the left-hand side of the graphic, there's a blue line with a 12-inch at the top. I assume if this graphic is correct, because like I said, it was a picture that I found on the internet. It seems to be about right from the ballistic tests I've seen in the past, but I liked it because it put several different defensive calibers all right there, all in front of you, so you could see which one was just the most powerful. According to that graphic, it's pretty much the 10 millimeter with the 45 running a very close second. I can tell you from some chronograph testing I've done on my own, I went to the range and chronoed my Glock 23 40 S&W 180 grain American Eagle. My average velocity was 972, and that yields an average kinetic energy of 377.97 foot-pounds, and that was a 5-shot average. In the 10 millimeter, I chronoed 5 PMC bronze 200 grain full metal jackets. They averaged out at 918, which I was kind of surprised at, that it was actually coming in below the 40, even though the 40 was 120 grains lighter. I figured they would have been about the same, but I'm just reporting the data that I got. That averaged 374.38 foot-pounds of energy. So the long and short of it is, what's the best round? You got to make up your mind. There are a lot more things, in my estimation, in my opinion, there are a lot more things that go into what makes up a good defensive caliber rather than just kinetic energy and wound channel and stretch channel, permanent channel, terminal ballistics, 1,000 feet per second. What it amounts to is, what are you comfortable shooting? If you're not comfortable banging away with a 45, and you are comfortable with a 9mm, here's the plain, simple truth that I've found over the years. If you're comfortable shooting a gun, when you go to the range, we tend to pack up the guns we're most comfortable with more. So we shoot them more, which means we become more proficient with that gun. If you're more proficient and you're more comfortable with that gun, the quicker you are going to get that gun out, get it deployed, get it out in front of you, get your sight picture, bang and bang. And any follow-up shots are going to come quicker because you're comfortable with the gun. You manage its recoil better. You manage its muzzle blast better. And because of that, your follow-up shots, if needed, are going to be quicker. So, everybody rants and raves. I said in the first episode, I'm a diehard 1911 guy. I love the 45 ACP. But guess what? Glock 29, 10 millimeter. I have to admit, it's a superior round, in my opinion. But what it boils down to is, I keep coming back to, what are you comfortable with? Carry what you're comfortable with. That's all I can say, because you're going to practice more with it. You're going to shoot it more because you're comfortable with it. You like shooting it. And it's just this circle that keeps going around. I refer to it as an ascending or a descending circle. If you're comfortable with it, you're going to carry it, which in turn makes you more proficient with it, which means you're going to like shooting it more, so you're going to shoot it more, so you're going to carry it more, and you just keep getting better and better with that gun. If you're not comfortable with it, guess what? We go the other way. You're not comfortable with it, so you don't shoot it as much. And when you carry it, you're not as comfortable with it, and you don't shoot it as well. So that is a downward spiral. So, that's just my personal opinion. This is all my personal opinion. So, I guess what I'm encouraging you to do is own one first. I would encourage every man, woman, and child in this country, avail yourself of your God-given rights and own a gun. Own a couple of them. Own a lot of them. But what I'm really encouraging you to do is to practice, to be proficient, be comfortable with it, know your firearm, especially the defensive firearm that you carry to keep yourself safe. And from there, who knows? I thought I'd never carry anything but a .45. Now I'm carrying a 10 millimeter. So take that for what it's worth. That's my opinion. Okay? It's that simple. So until next time, thanks for tuning into the Basement Gun Shop. Take care, see you next time, and keep shooting.